Hello everyone, my name is Vikrant Pandey and welcome to my channel Tech and Dabla, the combination of tech and art. So today I'm going to present one technical video about the Cisco ISE and the Microsoft Entra ID for the Dot1x authentication of wired users or the wireless users. So this will be useful for the Cisco ISE engineers, network engineers, and the engineers who are dealing with the Microsoft Entra ID, and also it will be useful for the users or the network engineers who are working in the identity and access management system. So let me share the presentation. So today's video's agenda will be, we will understand the authentication, authorization, and the identity store. The next is the user authorization with the Microsoft Entra ID. The user attributes we are using and the API permissions needs to be configured to integrate with the Entra ID. The difference between the SAML and the Dot1x authentication. And the last is the configuration steps and a demo. So you know the difference between the authentication and authorization. So what is the authentication? So authentication is the mechanism to identify who are you. Like employee needs to get authenticated before getting the network access. Okay, so the authentication may be using the certificate, that is the any certificate, the user certificates or the device certificates or any multi-factor authentication service. So after getting the authenticated and gets the network access, the next step is how much privileges you can have after getting authenticated. That is the authorization. So authorization decides what kind of privileges the user will get after the authentication. So authentication is the who are you thing, and authorization is what you can do after getting authenticated. So this is the typical flow in the enterprise network services, right? Any enterprise, the user or device authentication with the Cisco ISE and with the help of the identity stores. So the users with the laptops, right, or the desktop will have the Windows native applicants installed on them. So we need to configure those native applicants by the centralized management systems like the GPO, or if the devices are Entra ID joined machines, right, or the users, right, we need to push it via Intune. So when we configure the native applicants, it needs to be configured with the the protocol which we'll be using for the .1x authentication. So if you can see here, the EAP-TLS protocol is mentioned. That is a certificate-based authentication, right? So the user will send request to the wireless controller for the wireless SSID connection, or the switch for the wired connection. So those devices will forward those that Redis request to Cisco ISE. Okay, then the Cisco ISE as a Redis server will validate those requests with the help of the external identity store, whether it is Microsoft Entra ID or the on-prem ID, or any other identity stores. Yeah. So in our flow, right, we are having the user authorization with the Entra ID and the user authentication using the EAP-TLS. So the authentication in this case is only based on the client presenting a valid user certificate that is trusted by the ISE, and the authorization will be performed with the user group lookup with the Microsoft Entra ID. So I have prepared one of the video. Let's see that. So we have the endpoint, network access devices, Cisco ISE, and Entra ID. So Entra ID, the endpoint, right, will share its user certificates on the machine certificate. So we are talking about here the user certificate. Okay, so it will send the user certificates. Okay, and the network access device forward that request to Cisco ISE. ISE will validate that request. So to have this mutual authentication, right, the ISE should have the root CA certificate. Okay, that root CA certificate should be it signed the certificates of the endpoint. Okay, it should be mutual. So for the mutual trust, we need to have this root CA certificate in the trusted of the ISE, and the ISE certificates in the trusted of the endpoint. Okay, so it will send the user certificate to for the authentication. ISE will validate and authenticate it, and then what ICE will do for the next authorization, right? It will extract the user principal name. So the user certificate, right, will have the different fields, the common name, right, the subject alternative name. Okay, so this UPN is a term that can be used in that will be used in the Entra ID, right, to identify the users. So that UPN must be either be must be present in the common name of the certificate or the subject alternative name field as a other name. Okay, so ICE will fetch that UPN, right, and then use that UPN to find the group in the Entra ID. So using the REST API group lookup. So after confirming that the user presence in this group, it will send the response, right, to the ICE squares, and ICE will authorize the users based upon the authorization policy, and the complete flow will happen, and the user will get the network access. So this is the overall flow for the EAP-TLS user authorization using the Entra ID. So, so the main thing required here is the Cisco ISE version 3.2 plus require to have this flow. So let's go to the presentation. So to make this flow work, right, we need to configure these API permissions in the Entra ID. So when we register the app, right, so we need to have this API permissions like group member read all, user read, and the user read all. So let's see what it means. So permission, the first name is the group member. API permission is the group member read all. So what it allows is allows the application, right, to read membership on the Microsoft Entra ID groups, whether it is Microsoft 360 groups, security groups, or distribution list. The next is the user read. So it allows the user, that allows the ICE to sign in to the user, sign into the application, read their own basic profile. The next is the user read all. So it will allow the application to read full profiles of every user in the tenant. So these are the user attributes we can fetch from the Entra ID. So these user attributes can be used in the authorization policy to authorize the users in more granular way. Okay, but note that to use these user attributes in the authorization profiles, the Cisco ISE must have the premier license. Next is the SAML and the Dot1x authentication. The difference between the SAML and Dot1x authentication. The main focus for the SAML is the application access, and the main focus for the Dot1x is the network access. So it is best for the cloud services, software as a service, and the single sign-on in our network. The Dot1x is best for the wired and the wireless security. So SAML, what it does is it doesn't depend upon the device awareness, okay? But the dot one is depends upon the device awareness, whether the device is properly configured for the dot1x, properly have correct supplicant configuration for the posture, have the correct posture. So yeah, it is used for those. Device awareness is high in the dot1x, and the network access required for the SAML to work, right? So it, because when the how the SAML work is when the user needs the identity needs to uh, 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 check with the identity provider for the validation. But in the case of Dot1x, it will authenticate the user before allowing any network access to resources. So we can't use the SAML in conjunction with the Dot1x. It's such a chicken and egg problem. So yeah, SAML improves the user experience and the application security, while Dot1x enforces strong network access control. So they are different layers and like are often complemented rather than the competitive. Okay, so we will see the configuration steps and the demo. I will log in into the identity services. So first of all, what the prerequisite is, we need to integrate the Cisco ISE with the Entra ID using the app registration. So I have created an app and I have this API permissions here, just like we saw in the previous slides. Okay, and I have uh, given the admin consent for this or the API permissions. Okay, let's see. So I have this ICE. It's a 3.4 version, right? Without any patch. So our condition is the to have this flow. The identity services engine must be above 3.2 plus. Okay, so I will what I need to do first is the EAP-TLS, right? And we are using the user principal name in the sand field to have this identity in this Cisco ISE. So let's see. So go to the policy, go to the results. So here allowed protocols, we have the default network access. It will allow the EAP-TLS. And when you go to the external identity sources, where administration external identity sources, we have here the Entra ID. I configure it with the client ID and all. Then in the certificate authentication profile, right? I have created one Entra ID. And if you can see here the user identity form. So I have selected the subject alternative name, other name where. So in my case, the user principal name is in the subject alternative field as a other name. So I'm using that to have the user identity from. Okay. Then what I will do is I will configure the policy sets. So I've already configured it. You can see it's a wired Dot1x. I've selected the allowed protocol as a default. It will include an EAP-TLS. In the authentication profile, we are checking the EAP-TLS authentication flow, and here is the Entra ID, the CAP, the certificate authentication profile we configured, and we called it here. Okay, so it will fetch, it will see the identity in this subject alternative field of the certificate. So after authentication, this is authorization where I have called out the groups from the Entra ID. These are the group from the Entra ID. I faced it, and I have used in the authorization profile, and the result is the permit access. Okay, so let's see. So next is how the typical flow is like I mentioned in the earlier slides, right? The user will connect to the WLC or the switch, the user's PC, right? So here, instead of having the switch or WLC, I have the radius simulator called the SPRT. I have deployed it on my local computer. Okay, so it will used to generate the PX grid request, radius request, okay, and the TechX toolkit. So when I click on generate, click on EAP-TLS, okay, here select the wired one. I have already loaded uh, my server here, okay, and the EAP-TLS parameter is edit, test. I have the certificate already configured here, and I will have the each session username as any SAN name, okay, subject alternative name field. It's like generate is okay, and let's see again the wire. I will generate the traffic for the TLS, right? Okay, it started. Let's see on the live logs. It is there or not. The sessions. Okay, it's giving the deny access. Let me see what is the error currently. So if you see, it is hitting the correct policy, the auth default, okay. Then it is username. This is my username. You can see the subject alter name concern. Okay. So here you can see authentication passed. Okay. It will fetch the user principal name. This is my user principal name from the Entra ID. Okay. So it is not able to like fetch the groups. Let me troubleshoot this. Let me pause the video. Okay, that was the connection error. I will try with the different certificate now. Let's see in the TLS parameters. I've selected shoot. Okay, let's see, save it. Okay, certificate index. Let's see the parameters wire.connects. These are the services. Let's start the service. Okay, let's see in the oh, it's already you can see it is authenticated using this one. Let's see the live logs. So if you can see, it is creating the correct policy and the correct authorization policy. It is able to fetch the groups. Okay, so this is the username. It is part of those groups. Okay, and if you see here, subject alternative name, it is the other name that we are configured in the certificate authentication profile. It will be taken to fetch the groups from the Entra ID. If you can see here, looking up an endpoint in the internal endpoints using this ID, identity. Okay, so how this is exactly the flow will work. Okay, like I explained in this video, right? And let's see if you have any. Yeah, that's it from my end. So if you like this video, if you get any knowledge or any new thing, if you learn any new thing, okay, feel free to comment and subscribe. Thank you.